The light pulsed, a crystal heart beating at the center of the ceremonial hall. Hundreds of young people were arranged in rows, each with their right hand pressed against a polished obsidian sphere floating silently before them. The air smelled of ozone and possibility. It was the day of awakening, the moment when every citizen of Viridia discovered their place in the great loom of fate. Kaelen Voss kept his eyes closed as energy coursed through his arm. A current of pure potential wound through his veins, searching, probing, measuring. The sphere before him began to glow, not with the pale common light of the utility classes, nor with the silver sheen of mid-tier combat classes. It was a deep blue, the exact shade of the sky in the moments before dawn breaks. Combat class rank A. Instructor Valdris's voice echoed through the hall, laden with barely contained surprise. Eidolon Invoker, a murmur rippled through the rows. Rank A. In all of Aurelian Academy, only 3 or 4 students per year reached that tier. Kaelen opened his eyes, watching the blue light dance across his fingers. Eidolon Invoker. The class allowed him to summon spectral entities from adjacent planes to fight at his side. In theory, it was devastating. In practice, useless. The words slipped from someone's lips in the front row, low enough that the instructors couldn't hear, but loud enough to strike Kaelen like a poisoned needle. He knew the voice. Lyra Vex. His... what was she now? Girlfriend? Ex-girlfriend? The definition seemed to shift every week, depending on who was offering the better social advantages. The problem with Eidolon Invokers was simple and cruel. The greater Eidolons, the truly powerful entities that justified the rank A classification, had been sealed away for millennia. The great architects of the Abyss, the primordial beings, the Watchers, all had vanished during the cataclysm that nearly destroyed the world. The only Eidolons that remained were fragments, shadows, echoes of what they had once been. Summoning a fragment was like wielding a sword made of smoke. It impressed the eyes but cut nothing. What was that, Kaelen? Lyra turned, her own awakening already complete. A golden aura danced around her. Oh, I forgot. You can't hear me from down there, can you? The taunt was unnecessary. Everyone had already seen her evaluation. Flow Weaver, rank S. The first student at the academy that year to reach the highest tier. Liquid gold had poured from her awakening sphere like celestial honey. Flow Weavers manipulated the fundamental energy currents that permeated the world. With adequate training, they could disintegrate matter, heal mortal wounds, even distort space. It was an elite class, reserved for the cream of the elite, and Kaelen was merely an Eidolon Invoker with no Eidolons to invoke. Look at this. Gavrik Tor approached, his own sphere displaying the intense red of a rank warblade. His family controlled half of Viridia's awakening stones. The prodigy, who spent 3 years at the top of the school, woke up with the most useless class on the continent. That's poetry. Kaelen didn't respond. His mind was still processing the information the sphere had whispered to him during the awakening. Something beyond the standard evaluation. A voice that wasn't Instructor Valdris, nor anyone in the hall. A voice that seemed to come from within the blue light itself. Congratulations on awakening as an Eidolon Invoker. The Sanctuary of the Primordials has been activated. Welcome, Hare. Sanctuary of the Primordials. That term didn't exist in any class manual. He had studied every variation of Eidolon Invoker during his years of preparation. Bestial Invoker, Elemental Invoker, Shadow Invoker. None of them mentioned a sanctuary or primordials. The closest term would be primordial Eidolons, the divine tier entities that were supposedly exterminated during the cataclysm. Kaelen, are you listening to me? Lyra snapped her fingers in front of his face. I said we're done. Officially. For good, her words hit Kaelen like a bucket of ice water, yanking him from his thoughts. The entire hall seemed to go quiet, dozens of eyes turning toward the small human drama unfolding in the middle of the sacred ceremony. 3 years, Lyra continued, her voice perfectly calm, as though reciting a rehearsed lesson. 3 years waiting for you to awaken something decent. I invested my time, my reputation. And for what? For you to become an invoker with nothing to invoke? Lyra, Kaelen began, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand. Do you know how much the reconfiguration crystal I bought for you cost? All my savings from the guild internship. I thought you were going to be someone, that you'd awaken a class worthy of your potential. But you're nothing more than a failure with luck. Something inside Kaelen twisted. It wasn't just the public humiliation, it was the injustice. Lyra hadn't bought any crystal with her own money. That was the money he himself had saved, working 3 jobs through secondary school. Money he had handed to her because he trusted her to make the best use of it. And now she was using it as a weapon against him. You're lying, he said, his voice steadier than he expected. That money was mine. Prove it. She smiled, a smile that never reached her eyes. Do you have any proof? A receipt? A witness? No? Then it's your word against mine. And between a failed invoker and a rank S flow weaver, who do you think they'll believe? Gavrik draped his arm around Lyra's shoulders, pulling her close. She didn't resist. On the contrary, she nestled against him as if that were her natural place. To be worthy of a flow weaver like Lyra, Gavrik said, his voice thick with poisonous satisfaction, you need someone like me, not a fifth-rate invoker. You're pathetic, Voss. You always were. Kaelen tightened his fists. The blue light at his fingertips flickered, responding to his anger. But what could he do? Attacking Gavrik there, in front of the instructors, would mean immediate expulsion. And without a functional class, without an Eidolon to call, he wouldn't even scratch the Warblade. Mission issued. The awakening voice whispered in his mind. You will receive your first primordial Eidolon. Prepare for the bond. Primordial Eidolon. The words hammered in his head. If that were true, if a primordial truly still existed, then everything changed. The common Eidolons that invokers could call upon, the fragments, the shadows, the echoes, were exactly that, remnants, crumbs of power. But a true primordial. In ancient time, the primordials were forces of nature, entities that could level mountains, dry oceans, rewrite the laws of reality. They were not summoned, they were persuaded, negotiated with, honored. An invoker with a true primordial wasn't merely rank A, they were rank S. Perhaps beyond. What is it, Voss? Gavrik tilted his head. Lost your tongue along with your girlfriend? Enough. A new voice cut through the air, calm but heavy with authority. Everyone turned. It was Instructor Volin. Young to be a faculty member, perhaps 26 or 27, but there was something in her bearing that made even the most arrogant students lower their heads. Her silver hair was pinned in a military bun, and her eyes, an unusual violet, swept the hall like beacons. The awakening is a sacred ceremony, she said, approaching the group. Not a circus for bullies' entertainment. Gavrik Tor, if I hear one more word from you humiliating a fellow student, I will personally report your conduct to the Guild Council. And believe me, the Council has very specific rules about behavior at official ceremonies. Gavrik opened his mouth to retort, but something in Instructor Volin's gaze made him think twice. He shut it with an audible snap. And you, she turned to Lyra, if you want to end your relationship, do it in private. Don't turn the awakening into a spectacle. Yes, Instructor, Lyra murmured, the arrogant smile replaced by a mask of contrition that Kaelen knew all too well. She was excellent at playing whatever role suited her. Instructor Volin then looked at Kaelen. Her violet eyes seemed to pierce through him, searching for something beneath the surface. Eidolon Invoker, she said, more to herself than to him. A rare class. Very rare. Do you know what it means? That I'm doomed to be useless? Kaelen couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. It means you have potential, she corrected. The rarest classes are the hardest to master, but also the most rewarding. There is no useless class. There are only invokers who haven't yet found their Eidolon. There was something in her voice, a note of knowledge that went beyond the obvious, that made Kaelen lift his head. Instructor, do you know anything about primordials? The hall fell silent. The word hung in the air like distant thunder. Primordials, the forbidden term. The entities that had disappeared, been sealed, had died. No one knew for certain, but everyone knew the stories. The primordials were not merely Eidolons, they were gods, and gods did not answer to mortal invokers. Instructor Volin did not respond immediately. Her gaze fixed on Kaelen with an intensity that bordered on the supernatural. Where did you hear that word? She asked, her voice so low that only Kaelen could hear. During the awakening, the sphere, it told me something. Don't speak of this to anyone else, she whispered, drawing closer. Not to other instructors, not to your friends. Primordials are considered legends, myths, stories for children. If you mention that you heard that word during your awakening, you will attract attention, the wrong kind of attention. But is it real? Kaelen pressed. Do the primordials truly exist? Instructor Volin hesitated. Her fingers touched a pendant hanging from her neck, a small violet crystal that pulsed with its own light. My grandfather is the keeper of the ancient records in the capital, she said at last. He spent his life studying the creatures that existed before the cataclysm. According to him, the primordials were never destroyed. They were sealed. Someone, or something, imprisoned them in an adjacent plane to prevent them from interfering with the mortal world. Then they can be freed? That's the wrong question. The right question is, who sealed them and why? She shook her head. But those are questions for another time. Right now, you need to focus on the superior trial. The exam begins in 1 hour. If you don't pass, it doesn't matter what class you awakened, the superior trial. the final test that determined who would enter the capital's martial university and who would be left behind. Kaelen had spent 3 years preparing for that moment, but that was before he knew he would awaken as an invoker. Invokers couldn't fight alone. They needed their eidolons, and his had yet to manifest. Instructor, he began. Go to the East Wing, she interrupted, her voice barely audible. There's an abandoned invocation chamber there. No one has used it in decades. If your eidolon truly is what you suggest, perhaps the residual energy of the place will help with the manifestation. You have 1 hour. Use it well. Kaelen nodded, grateful. While the other students dispersed to prepare for the trial, he headed in the opposite direction, toward the East Wing of the academic complex. The East Wing was a relic of an earlier era. Dusty corridors, cracked wooden doors, the smell of mold and accumulated time in the walls. The academy had been built upon the ruins of an ancient invocation temple, and that wing was what remained of the original structure. Kaelen found the room Instructor Volin had mentioned. It was circular, with a vaulted ceiling where a faded mural depicted constellations that no longer existed. At the center, an invocation circle carved into the stone floor, its runes covered by centuries of dust. Place your hand on the circle, the sanctuary's voice instructed. Kaelen obeyed. The moment his fingers touched the cold stone, the runes ignited. Blue light, the same light as his awakening, ran through the carvings like water flowing through dry channels. The ceiling mural came to life, the constellations blazing with blinding intensity. I am Kaelen Voss, he said, not knowing exactly why, but feeling that the words were necessary. Here of the sanctuary, Eidolon Invoker, and I summoned my primordial. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air at the center of the circle began to distort. Not like a heat mirage, but as if the very fabric of reality were being folded, twisted, torn. A rift opened, a tiny portal to somewhere that was nowhere. And through the rift, something looked back at Kaelen. It was not a hostile gaze. It was curious, evaluating, like an ancient predator examining a creature it had never seen before, trying to decide if it was prey, threat, or something entirely new. Are you here? The voice thundered in his mind, deep enough to make his bones vibrate. Do you carry the mark of the pact? I carry whatever is necessary, Kaelen replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. Who are you? I am Zhiyan, the sword-bearer, the silent reaper, he who walks between shadows. I was the first of the 9 to be sealed, and I will be the last to fall. The rift widened, and Kaelen could see the primordial silhouette. It was humanoid but not human. A slender figure wrapped in liquid shadows, eyes glowing like blue embers, hands ending in talons capable of tearing steel like paper. On its back, 6 wings of solid darkness unfurled, each one the size of a grown man. Zhiyan, Kaelen repeated the name, feeling the power it carried. You are one of the 9 primordials? The 9 children of the primordial dragon. Zhiyan, the reaper. Baxian, the unbreakable shield. Fushi, the silent sage. And 6 others, each with their domain, each with their purpose. Together we form the Court of Shadows. Primordial dragon. The mention made Kaelen's heart race. Dragons had been extinct since the cataclysm. At least that was what everyone believed. But if the primordials were bound to dragons, then perhaps dragons were not as extinct as they seemed. I need your strength, Kaelen said. There is a trial, a battle, and without you, I cannot fight. The bond between Invoker and Primordial is not simple service. It is partnership. You fight, I fight. You bleed, I bleed. You grow, I grow. The bond is eternal. Once formed, it cannot be broken. Do you understand what you are offering? I understand. No, you don't. But you will, the shadow advanced. Before Kaelen could react, Zhiyan's talons pierced his chest. There was no physical pain, but an agony that transcended the body, reaching something deeper, more fundamental. It was as if his soul were being branded, sculpted, rewritten. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it ended. Kaelen staggered backward, breathless. He looked down at his own chest. No wound, no scar, but he felt something different inside himself. A presence, a power. A connection to something vast and ancient that was now part of him. At the center of the circle, Zhiyan was no longer a distant silhouette through a rift. The primordial was there, solid, real, his 6 shadow wings hovering at the edges of reality. The bond is complete, Zhiyan announced. I am now your Eidolon, and you are my invoker, but our power will not be total until you grow in strength. For now, I am limited by your own level. Limited how? You are rank 0. You do not have enough flow essence to sustain me at full power. You will need to evolve, hunt creatures of the abyss, absorb the energy of defeated enemies. As you rise in rank, my power unlocks. Kaelen nodded, his mind already mapping strategies. Rank 0, the lowest rung of the ladder. But he had a primordial at his side. That had to count for something. "We need to go to the superior trial," he said. "Can you accompany me without the others seeing you? I can conceal myself in the shadows. No one will see me unless I choose it." "Then let's go." The superior trial was held at the evaluation field, a colossal arena on the outskirts of the city where spatial rifts were artificially opened to simulate abyss creature invasions. Students had to enter those rifts, hunt as many beasts as possible, and return with essence cores as proof of their conquests. When Kaelen arrived at the evaluation field, most students were already taking their positions. The arena was divided into sectors, each with a rift of progressive difficulty. Sector 1 contained rank 1 to 3 beasts, Sector 2 rank 3 to 5, Sector 3 rank 5 to 7, and Sector 4, reserved only for the bravest or the most reckless, housed rank 7 and above. "Well, look who decided to show up," Gavrick's voice rang out. He was standing with Lyra and 2 other students at the entrance to Sector 2. "The Invoker with no Eidolon has come to honor us with his presence." Kaelen ignored the remark. His eyes searched for Instructor Volin, but she was nowhere to be seen, probably coordinating evaluations in another sector. "Going into Sector 1? Lyra asked, her voice sweet as venom. "Be careful not to trip over an abyss rabbit and hurt yourself. Oh, and thank you for the munting for the reconfiguration crystal. It was very useful for buying this new uniform." She spun in place, showing off the battle attire that gleamed with protective runes. Kaelen felt the anger bubble in his chest, but held it in check. Zhiyan was somewhere in the shadows around him, waiting, watching. "Sector 1, he said simply, walking toward the nearest gate. "Of course," Gavrick laughed. "You know your place." What they didn't know was that Kaelen had no intention of staying in Sector 1. He needed power. He needed flow essence. And the most concentrated essence was in the most powerful beasts. He would start low, accumulate strength, and then advance into the deeper sectors. But for that, he needed a foundation. "There is a third option," Zhiyan whispered in his mind. "Beyond the official gates, there are unmapped entrances. Ancient rifts, forgotten by the evaluators. The beasts there are older, more powerful, but the essence they provide is exponentially greater." "Where?" "Grisel Forest, on the outskirts of the city. It is a restricted area, but the containment barriers are weak. I can open a passage." Kaelen hesitated for only a second. Restricted areas were forbidden for a reason. The beasts there were not calibrated for students. They were wild, unpredictable, some rank 8 or higher. But the alternative was spending months, perhaps years, climbing levels through conventional methods. He didn't have that time. "Let's go." He discreetly abandoned the evaluation field and headed for the edge of the city. Grisel Forest was a dark smear on the horizon, a dense stretch of woodland where abyss rifts had been opened during the Cataclysm, and never fully closed. Beasts roamed freely, and only licensed professional hunters were permitted to enter. At the gate, a veteran guard blocked his path. "Restricted area. Return to the city." "I need to enter." "Need to?" The guard raised an eyebrow. "You barely look past your teens. What could a kid like you possibly want in a level 8 hunting zone?" Before Kaelen could answer, a familiar voice sounded behind him. "He's with me." It was Instructor Volin. She approached with calm strides, her violet pendant glowing softly. "Instructor," Kaelen began. "I said you had 1 hour," she replied. "I figured you'd come here. Grisel Forest has the highest concentration of primordial essence in the region. It's the only place where your Eidolon can grow strong quickly." "Instructor Volin," the guard bowed respectfully. "I wasn't aware you were supervising a student." "I am." "Let him through." The guard hesitated, but Instructor Volin's authority was unquestionable. He opened the gate. Here, she held out 2 sealed scrolls to Kaelen. Substitution scrolls. If you suffer a fatal blow, they will activate automatically and teleport you back to the forest entrance. These must cost a fortune. Kaelen looked at the scrolls, recognizing the high-level protection seals. Each one was worth at least 100,000 flow coins. Consider it an investment. You awaken a class that hasn't appeared in centuries. It would be a waste to let you die before you show what you're capable of. She paused. "Besides, I have my own reasons for wanting to see how far you can go." "What reasons?" "My grandfather spent 60 years studying the Primordials. He always believed they would return one day. If you truly have a bond with one of them, then perhaps he was right. And if he was right about that, perhaps he's right about other things too. Dark things." Before Kaelen could ask what dark things those were, she gently pushed him toward the gate. "Go. You have until the end of the superior trial to return with as many cores as you can. Show everyone that an invoker is not synonymous with failure." Grisel Forest was a living nightmare. Twisted trees whose branches contorted like skeletal fingers, dense fog that reduced visibility to a few meters, and the constant, omnipresent sound of things crawling, dragging, lurking in the shadows. Rank 8 beasts ahead, Zhiyan warned. 3 of them. Ambush predators. They will strike the moment we enter their territory. Can you defeat them? With my current strength? Perhaps 1, but 3 simultaneously is beyond my capacity. We need a strategy. Kaelen analyzed the terrain. The trees formed a natural corridor with thorny shrubs on both sides. The beasts were likely hidden among the thorns, waiting for the right moment to strike. If I offer myself as bait, can you ambush the ambushers? Explain. I enter the corridor as if I'm unaware of the danger. When they attack, I use the substitution scrolls. The moment they're distracted by the teleport, you strike. Risky. If the scroll fails, that's why the instructor gave them to me. I trust her. Zhiyan didn't argue. Kaelen took a deep breath and advanced through the tree corridor. The attack came faster than he expected. 3 shadows burst from the shrubs, feline creatures the size of horses, with black fur that absorbed light and yellow eyes like diseased suns. Talons the length of daggers sliced through the air toward his throat. The scroll activated at the same instant. A burst of violet light enveloped Kaelen, and he felt the world spin. When the light dissipated, he was at the forest entrance, exactly where Instructor Volin had left him. Now! Zhiyan roared in his mind. Even from a distance, Kaelen could feel the release of power. A wave of absolute darkness swept through the forest, followed by 3 sharp shrieks that were abruptly cut short. Then, silence. He ran back. In the tree corridor, Zhiyan stood over the shattered remains of the 3 beasts. His talons dripped a black liquid that evaporated on contact with the air, essence cores. Zhiyan pointed to 3 gleaming crystals that had materialized atop the corpses. Absorb them. Kaelen picked up the crystals. They were cold to the touch, pulsing with an energy he could feel vibrating in his bones. Following instinct, he pressed them against his chest. Over the place where Zhiyan had marked the bond, the absorption was immediate. Raw power coursed through his veins, burning, purifying, strengthening. He felt his flow essence reserve expand, his senses sharpen, his muscles grow denser. Congratulations, host, the sanctuary's voice echoed. You have reached rank 1. Zhiyan's first seal has been partially unlocked. Only partially, Zhiyan possesses 9 seals. Each corresponds to one of your ranks. At rank 9, he will be at full power. It was a long road, but it was a road, and every step brought him closer to his goal. Keep going, Kaelen said. Let's hunt more. The hours that followed were a whirlwind of blood and growth. Kaelen and Zhiyan swept through Grizzle Forest like a silent storm, cutting down beast after beast. Ambush predators, abyss crawlers, shadow devourers. Every victory yielded more cores, and every core pushed him another rung higher, rank 2. Then rank 3. By the time the sun began to set, Kaelen was already at rank 4, and Zhiyan had unlocked his 4th seal. His shadow wings were now 8, and his presence was oppressive enough to send lesser beasts fleeing before they even came within range. There is something different ahead, Zhiyan warned suddenly. An energy that does not belong to this plane. Kaelen advanced with caution. At the heart of the forest, he found a circular clearing where the vegetation was dead and the ground was covered in ash. At its center, a spatial rift flickered erratically, its glow shifting between a sickly violet and absolute black. It's an unstable rift, Kaelen murmured. Like the ones the instructor mentioned. No, it is worse. It is a reverse invocation rift. Something on the other side is trying to enter our world. Before Kaelen could respond, the rift exploded with blinding light. A figure emerged from it, a creature that was neither beast nor primordial, but something entirely different. A being of pure energy, its form shifting constantly between humanoid and monstrous, its eyes 2 vortices of absolute darkness. You vermin dare disturb my rest? The creature hissed, its voice the sound of 1,000 blades being sharpened simultaneously. I am a fragment of the outer god, a piece of something that will soon consume your entire world. Outer god. The term hit Kaelen like a punch. In the ancient texts he had studied, the outer gods were mentioned only as myths. Apocalyptic legends used to frighten children. Entities from beyond the stars that had allegedly attempted to devour the world during the cataclysm, before being repelled by the Primordials. Zhiyan, Kaelen began. I know. We faced them before. That is why we were sealed. To contain the invasion. You were sealed to protect the world? We were sealed as anchors. Our bodies form a dimensional barrier that keeps the outer gods at bay. But if a fragment is already here, it means the barrier is weakening. The fragment laughed, a sound that made the surrounding air freeze, weakening. Your barrier is crumbling, primordial. In 3 years, 5 at most, it will fall completely, and when that happens, my brothers will come. all of them, and your world will be our feast. 3 years. The information struck Kaelen with the force of a hammer. He had just awakened, just found his Eidolon. He had thought he had time to grow, to become stronger, to prove his worth. But 3 years was no time at all. That is not going to happen, Kaelen said, his voice steadier than he felt. We defeated you before. We will defeat you again. You, a rank 4 invoker and a sealed primordial, you've barely managed to defeat beasts. You stand no chance against a fragment. The fragment attacked. A lance of black energy shot from its hand, too fast to dodge. Kaelen instinctively raised his arm to shield himself, but Zhiyan was faster. His wings folded around Kaelen like a cocoon of shadows, absorbing the impact. I am not just any primordial, Zhiyan roared. I am the Silent Reaper, and Reapers do not fear fragments. He advanced. His talons tore through the air, opening wounds in reality through which the fragment's energy bled out. The creature fell back, surprised but not defeated. More lances of darkness were fired, each one blocked or deflected by Zhiyan. I can help, Kaelen shouted. Give me power. The bond works in both directions. Use my strength as if it were your own. Kaelen closed his eyes. He felt Zhiyan's presence in his mind, a blue flame burning at the center of his being. He focused on that flame, pulled at it, shaped it. When he opened his eyes, his hands were wrapped in liquid shadows, miniature replicas of Zhiyan's talons. He joined the battle, not as an invoker commanding his Eidolon from a distance, but as partners fighting side by side. Zhiyan attacked the creature head-on, keeping it occupied, while Kaelen flanked it, using his shadow talons to sever the energy tentacles the fragment launched. The fight lasted what felt like an eternity. The fragment was powerful, far more powerful than any beast they had faced, but it was not invincible. Each of Zhiyan's blows drained a little more of its energy. Each of Kaelen's cuts opened wounds that would not close. Finally, the fragment staggered. This is not the end, it hissed. When my brothers arrive, you won't be here to see it. Kaelen drove both hands into the creature's chest, his shadow talons piercing the energy core. The fragment exploded. A shockwave knocked Kaelen to the ground, and when he rose, the clearing was empty. The rift had closed. The fragment had dissipated. But its words remained, echoing in Kaelen's mind like a funeral bell. 3 years. Host, the sanctuary's voice sounded again. Mission complete. First contact with the outer gods recorded. Reward, Zhiyan's 5th seal has been partially unlocked. New mission available. Gather the 9 children of the primordial dragon to restore the dimensional barrier. The 9, Kaelen murmured. I need to find the other 8. Yes, Zhiyan is the first. Baxian, the unbreakable shield. Fushi, the silent sage. And 6 others, each sealed in a different location, each waiting for an invoker to free them. Where are they? The locations will be revealed as you grow in power. For now, you need to return to the academy. The superior trial is ending. Kaelen looked up at the sky. The sun was already setting, staining the clouds orange and red. He had spent the entire day in the forest. He needed to return, hand in the cores he had collected, secure his place at the capital university. But as he ran back toward the city, a new determination burned in his chest. He was no longer just a student trying to pass an exam. He was the heir of the sanctuary, the invoker of primordials, and perhaps, just perhaps, the last hope of a world that didn't know it was doomed. The following morning, the academy was in an uproar. The results of the superior trial had been announced, and there was a name at the top of the list that no one had expected: Kaelen Voss, Eidolon Invoker. 247 essence cores collected. An absolute record in the entire history of Aurelian Academy. Impossible, Gavrik was livid, his fists clenched over the results list. An invoker has no offensive power. He couldn't have defeated that many beasts. He must have cheated. Lyra agreed, though her voice lacked conviction. Maybe he bought the cores on the black market. Or perhaps. Instructor Volin's voice cut through the air. You two simply underestimated the potential of a class you don't understand. She was standing in the doorway of the evaluation room, her violet pendant glowing softly. At her side, Kaelen stood calm, hands in his pockets, an unreadable expression on his face. Kaelen Voss is officially the top-ranked student in the superior trial, the instructor announced. He has secured his place at the capital's Martial University with highest honors. Any accusation of cheating must be accompanied by evidence. Do you have evidence? Gavrik opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no evidence. He had nothing but resentment. This isn't over, he hissed, low enough that only Kaelen could hear. My family controls the awakening stones, controls the hunting gates, controls half the economy of Viridia. You may have won this battle, Voss, but the war is only beginning. Gavrik, Kaelen replied calmly. You still don't understand, do you? I'm not fighting against you. You are insignificant. My enemies are much, much bigger. He turned and walked out of the room, Instructor Volin at his side. Are you going to tell me what really happened in the forest? She asked when they were far enough away to not be overheard. I found something. Kaelen hesitated. Something that wasn't a beast. A fragment of an outer god. Instructor Volin stopped. Her face went pale. A fragment? Here? In Viridia? Zhiyan said the barrier is weakening. We have 3 years at most before it falls completely. 3 years. She ran a hand through her hair, a nervous gesture. That explains the reports I've been receiving. Increased sightings of anomalous creatures. Rifts opening in places where they shouldn't. My grandfather was right. Something is coming. I need to find the other primordials, Kaelen said. All 9. They are the key to restoring the barrier. Then you need to go to the capital. The university has access to ancient records, maps of ruins, locations of seals. But be careful. There are people in the capital who will not be pleased to learn that an invoker of primordials is gathering power. The outer gods are not the only threat. What do you mean? Instructor Volin looked around, making sure no one was watching them. If the primordials were sealed to form the barrier, then someone sealed them. Someone with enough power to imprison 9 divine entities. If that person, or their descendants, is still out there, they may not want the barrier undone. Even if it means the destruction of the world. Why would anyone do that? Power, control. Free primordials represent a threat to current power structures. If you can control the primordials, you can challenge kingdoms, topple governments, rewrite the world order. There are those who would rather see the world end than lose their dominion over it. Kaelen absorbed the information. The path ahead was more dangerous than he had imagined. It wasn't enough to find and free the primordials. He would have to face those who wanted to keep them imprisoned. And those enemies would not be irrational beasts, but people. People with power, influence, and everything to lose. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because my grandfather dedicated his life to studying the primordials. He believed they were the key to saving the world, not destroying it. And because... She hesitated, touching her pendant. Because I myself am descended from an invoker. My family was once responsible for protecting one of the primordial seals. But the seal was lost during the cataclysm. Perhaps, with your help, we can find it again. Which seal? Baxian's, the unbreakable shield. He is somewhere in the depths of the capital, buried under centuries of ruins and forgetting. Kaelen smiled, a smile not of joy, but of determination. Then that's where I'm going, to the capital, to the university, to find Baxian and all the others. And I'm going with you, Instructor Volin said. Not as an instructor, but as an ally. If the world truly has only 3 years, we need all the help we can get. As they walked out of the academy together, Kaelen felt the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. He was no longer just a rejected student, a ridiculed invoker, a boyfriend traded in for someone more convenient. He was the bearer of an ancient legacy, the vanguard of a war humanity didn't even know it was fighting. But he was not alone. He had Zhiyan. He had Instructor Volin. And soon, if everything went right, he would have all 9 children of the primordial dragon. Lyra and Gavrik remained behind, small figures in the crowd of a city that didn't know its days were numbered. Kaelen did not look back. The past was dead. The future was all that mattered, and the future began now.